Well, before we begin, I do want to give one quick announcement for everybody. On Thursday this week, in addition to everything else already happening on Thursday, we have Gary McManamy coming here from the state office at 11 o'clock in the morning. He's going to teach strategies for witnessing to people from a scratch conversation. It's going to be in preparation for the food fair that we have. He's going to teach us basically how to walk up to somebody you've never met before and basically start off by talking about Christ to them and how to work with that. And then in the evening, after handing out the flyers, anyone that can't be there but can come in the evening, we're going to reteach that information and specifically orient it toward the food fair Thursday evening after handing out the flyers. So make sure you guys can come to that, because that's what the food fair is going to be about is, hey, we're helping people with their diet, but we also want to share Christ with them at the same time. So we'll have the guy who's the head of the evangelism department for the state of Michigan at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then that'll last until about noon and be done. And then in the evening, after the flyers, we'll continue talking about that and going through that. So hopefully you can come to that. That'll be a good time. So anyways, meanwhile, are you ready for Genesis 25? Oh, good. Still a couple of people excited. I'm just about delirious with excitement, mainly because I'm exhausted. So when exhausted, you can be delirious and not know it. So this is going to be a great time. We had a wedding yesterday, rehearsal the day before that, and then the wedding reception last night, and then we had to put the sanctuary back together. And all we were supposed to do, it was my job, get here at 6 a.m., set up the sound equipment. But then I looked out and saw all the extra chairs all stacked up, and I thought to myself, I can't preach that way. It's going to distract me. So I went ahead and just moved all those 100-some chairs out into the gym. So I'm a little bit exhausted, but you won't hear me complain about it. So anyway, Genesis chapter 25, just real quick, my name is John Coyne, pastor here at Anchor Baptist Church. We go through the Bible step by step, verse by verse here, different books. We're in Genesis, we're up to 25, yeehaw, and just want to remind you, there are bathrooms in the back and a tithing box right off to the side, so don't forget those on your way out. Let's start off with a word of prayer, and then we'll kick into chapter 25. Heavenly Father, I thank you, Lord, for all that you have done for us. Lord, that you have provided this place for us to be able to meet and be kept warm in. Lord, I thank you for your word that you have given to us and allowed to be translated into English that we can understand. And I thank you that it's been translated in so many other languages for other countries and nationalities to be able to read. And I pray, Lord, this morning, help our minds to be focused. So many things can distract our thoughts, and so many things can cause us to be tired. I ask for a heightened of energy. I ask, Lord, that our hearts might be open and receptive to your Spirit, that through your Spirit you might convict us and draw us closer to you. This I pray in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, Genesis chapter 25. This is an infamous chapter about two brothers. Twice, actually. We get Isaac and Ishmael one more time, and then we get Jacob and Esau. Or if you go by order, it would be Ishmael, Isaac, Esau, and Jacob. Okay, so that's what we're going to be dealing with, are these brothers, predominantly Esau and Jacob. That's what we're going to focus most of our time on, but we got to hit the other ones first, because we're going through this. How? Verse by verse, and 2 Timothy 3:16 says, all Scripture is God-breathed and profitable for correction and rebuke and training in righteousness. So we're going to go through these names. Okay, there's lots and lots and lots of names. I don't know how to pronounce half of them. I'm better with Greek than I am with Hebrew, and so when I get into this, it's like, okay, we're going to struggle through the names. So I have a belief system. I'm going to speak it with speed and confidence, and that should show you that I know what I'm saying. So it'll be fine. If you think I mispronounced them, that's okay. Send an email to our head deacon and tell him I mispronounced the name. He'd love to hear about that. So, Genesis chapter 25, verse 1. Now, Abraham had taken another wife. Okay, we'll stop there. We're going to be here a while in this chapter. Okay, here's what's going on. There are two ways to interpret this, and the best way that I know of to handle this is that this is a passage beginning that's not chronologically in order. This is not necessarily something that is happening right after Sarah's death. So don't necessarily, you could read it that Sarah died and Abraham got remarried and went on. You could say that. But the word here is the same type of wife meaning that means concubine, same title that's given to Hagar, and that's not the type of word you use when somebody's not married and then they remarry. Okay, so it seems that this is pointing toward that Moses is trying to catch us up on, oh, by the way, now that Sarah's dead and we're going to move on here, just so that you know, Abraham had other kids than just Ishmael and Isaac. He had more than one concubine. Here's another one, Keturah, and she had all these kids. So it's just kind of a catching you up to speed so that we can get to Abraham's death and then move on with the story. Okay, so that seems to be what's going on here. So Abraham had taken another wife, and plus the word another, it doesn't indicate a replacement, but an additional wife to one that he already currently has. So that's another issue that's going on there. So it seems to be just chronologically out of order. Her name was Keturah, and she bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuah. Jokshan fathered Sheba and Dedan. Dedan's sons were the Ashurim, the Letushim, and the Leumim. And the Midian sons were Ephah, Epher, Hannah, Abida, and Eldah. And these were the sons of Keturah. Abraham gave everything he owned to Isaac, and Abraham gave gifts to the sons of his concubines. While he was still alive, he sent them eastward, away from his son Isaac, to the land of the east. Okay, so what's happening here predominantly is that Abraham had multiple women in his life, and he had lots of children throughout these women. But Isaac is the special promised child. He is the one that inherits the entire estate. Everybody else gets a gift, like a gift card to Outback. Thanks for being my son. Here you go. Enjoy a steak on me. It almost seems like, wow, I'd hate to be those other kids. Like they're getting the short end of the stick here. Makes you wonder if some of the hostility amongst the families might stem from jealousy and a little bit of irritations from some of this. Like, man, Isaac got millions and millions of dollars in the will, and we got stuck with the gift card and the cat. You know, I mean, they're like, this isn't fair. What's up with that? And so that's what's kind of happening here. Everything goes to Isaac, and then everyone's sent eastward. They kind of go off. And so what we have is this, mysteries arise. It's just interesting that as out of close love and out of wide division, mysteries come up. You know, how is it that with all this love going on that there's this unfair treatment amongst the kids? Why did they have to get just gifts? Why not actually like a portion of the inheritance? Just the majority of it goes to Isaac. Why couldn't they get some of that? So a lot of these mysteries come up within this. And then when Abraham dies, another mystery comes up. Ishmael re-enters the picture. Okay, I mean, this is odd. Because he went off with Hagar, and they went to the other side of this desert, and they're going off, and they're gone. And now Ishmael's there for his dad's burial, which is going to happen in just a few verses, and that's mysterious. They didn't have cell phones. I mean, how long did they hold on to the body until Ishmael showed up and got word? How long did they wait for Ishmael to respond and actually show up? I mean, were they in constant contact? Did they send letters back and forth? Or were they battling a little bit? You know, they get Rock'em Sock'em Robots out and they try to figure out who's king of the land. And, I mean, so this relationship's a mystery as well that seems to go on here. But as is the case, death is a recipe much in vogue with all trades and professions and all throughout life. In case you don't know, if anybody here literary people, you love to read? Anybody read Tale of Two Cities? You'll appreciate these quotes. They're all from that. So, Google's a wonderful thing. So, the verse 7 here, this is the length of Abraham's life, 175 years. He took his last breath and died at a ripe old age and contented. I wonder how many of us can say that we're contented with life. If we were to die now, would we be described that way? Just an interesting thought there. And he was gathered to his people. This shows that there was a belief in an afterlife system. Many anthropologists try to say the Bible's inaccurate because Genesis was written so many thousands of years ago and this idea of an afterlife didn't exist. But yet here it is, written so many thousands of years ago, and there's this idea of being gathered to people that are already there. Okay, so there very much was this idea of a life after this one. So his sons, Abraham's sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite. A couple chapters ago, when Sarah had died, Abraham wanted to buy this cave to be able to bury her in, and the Hittite said, take the land and a field with it as well. So Abraham got that, and that became now the burial site for his family. So Sarah's buried there, now Abraham gets buried there. And this poses an interesting question I'd like to ask. Anybody here ever have to bury a parent? before. Okay, that's something I've not had to do. I've had to bury a grandparent. I've not had to bury a parent. And so if you've not had to bury a parent yet, let me ask you, are you ready to? Now, I don't mean that yet. Yeah, I want to kill him. I don't mean it like that. I mean it, are you prepared? When people bury a parent, a lot of times what I have seen is there's regret. There's regret there. They look at the casket and they say to themselves, I wish I would have said something different. I wish I would have left it on better terms. I wish I would have said I love you one more time. I wish I would have said I'm sorry. I wish I would have tried to right the wrongs that were done. Are you ready to do what Ishmael and Isaac are having to do in this passage? Have you said I love you to that parent if they're still alive? Are you ready? If you were to get the phone call tomorrow morning that you're going to have to prepare a funeral, are you ready? Have you said all that needs to be said? If not, if you say, I still have anger, or if you say, I've not said I love you to my parents in I don't know how long, can't remember the last time. Hopefully you got a fill in the blank sheet. Grab a pen, write it down. Don't let the sun go down tonight without that phone call. And if you are a parent, same question, a little bit in reverse. Are you ready to be buried? Or are your children going to say, I wish? Or in your last 30 seconds, and you know it's going to end, and you do not have time to make a phone call, are you going to have a last thought of regret? I wish I would have called sooner. I wish I would have righted the wrong sooner. Let me challenge you. Don't let the sun go down tonight without making those phone calls. Grab that pen, paper, write it down right now. Write it down. Call so-and-so and apologize. Tell them I love them. And you might say, well, they were mean to me or they started it. Who cares about who started what? Person A cussed out person B punched person A. They both sinned. Does it matter who started it? Both are sin. Both are guilty. Somebody's got to start somewhere. Be the bigger person. Say, I'm sorry and I love you. Well, they were mean. They did this first. I don't care. And come the time that you're in front of that casket, you won't care either. The hurt will be there like an open wound. So take care of that tonight before the sun goes down. Well, this is going to start getting heavy quick, so let's move on to a couple of verses here. Verse 10, this was the field that Abraham brought from the Hittites. Abraham was buried there with his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who lived near Beer-lahai-roi. Now we're going to get into a couple of toledotes here. This is how Moses has structured the book of Genesis. The toledot is the Hebrew phrase for these are the generations of, or this is what came out of. Okay, so that's how these are divided. That's the chapters Moses gave us. So, these are the family records of Abraham's son Ishmael, whom Hagar, the Egyptian, Sarah's slave, bore to Abraham. These are the names of Ishmael's sons. Their names, according to the family records, are Nebaioth, Ishmael's firstborn, then Kedar, Abdil, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jatur, Napish, and Kedema. These are Ishmael's sons, and these are their names by their villages and encampments, 12 leaders of their clans. Now, real quick, these are given in birth order. Here's a fun Bible study for you. I'm not going to give you the answer to this. I'm just going to throw it out there, and we'll hit it later on some point. Here's a good Bible study. The 12 tribes of Judah, okay, that were birthed to Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. The 12 tribes of Judah are listed in birth order once in the Bible. All the other times, names are switched in different orders. Why is that? That's a good homework assignment for you. Look through all the names of Judah when they're listed, all the 12 tribes of Israel. Notice that they're in different orders. And look at the context. And notice, that's interesting. Why not in birth order? Why are they all in different orders every time? That's interesting. So I'll throw that out to you. Just enjoy that. Write that down. Go home. Have a Bible study. It'll give you something fun to do. So, as we go on here, the length of Ishmael's life, 137 years. He took his last breath and died and was gathered to his people, and they settled in Havilah to Shur, which is opposite Egypt as you go toward Ashur. He lived in opposition to all his brothers. Okay, so Ishmael was just this stubborn guy, and his family was just as stubborn as he was. He was a kicker, a fighter, and a biter, a lot like a donkey sometimes is. He was called a donkey of a man by God earlier in the text, and he fulfills that. He really does show that, yeah, God knows what he was talking about. I'm a donkey of a guy. I'll kick and spit and bite and be stubborn. And so he was constantly in opposition to everybody. Just a lot of aggression, a lot of rage, and that continued from generation to generation to generation until we get what we have is the Middle East conflict today. We still have that constant battling of the Arab nation out of Ishmael and amongst everybody else in that area. It's just constantly, there's that fighting that's going on. Then it takes us from the Toledot of Ishmael to the Toledot of Isaac. And it's significantly longer. It starts here and ends at chapter 35, verse 29. So we're not going to get through all of Isaac's Toledot for a while. We do about a chapter a week. So we're going to be here for a while on this. So these are the family records of Isaac, son of Abraham. Abraham fathered Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took his wife Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel of the Aramean from the Padan Aram and sister of Laban the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. Okay, she was childless. Now, I'm not calling childless the best of times. That's not what I'm saying. I have a daughter and I love her and you know, for like the first week we loved having a daughter. For the second week we loved being childless for a while. And then the third week we loved having a daughter again and everything was great. It was a great roller coaster for us. But the best of times is just the idea that Rebekah was like her previous matriarch, Sarah. She's barren. Okay, Sarah was barren, and what did Sarah do when she couldn't have children? She told her husband to go have an affair, go commit adultery. Here's her handmaid named Hagar. Go ahead and have her and have children with her. Okay, so Abraham commits adultery, and we get the Middle East conflict from that. Yeehaw, good adultery, right? Hey, so here, Rebekah is barren. What's the result? What is the reaction to Abraham's son? How does he respond? Does he respond like Abraham and go and commit adultery? No. What we find is that Isaac responds with prayer. Rather than finding a concubine, Isaac responds with prayer. He says, my wife is barren, so God, please open her womb. And then rather than being impatient, Isaac waited. He waited. He learned from his dad's mistakes, which is awesome. Now, he won't learn from all his dad's mistakes. We'll find that out in a couple chapters, in the next chapter down the road here. But he learned here of his dad's mistakes. He prays, and God opens Rebekah's womb, and she gets pregnant. I mean, that's the best of times right there. When you can't have kids, you can't have kids. You're trying, then all of a sudden, you know, you got this little pink bar on your little test. Like, woohoo! Okay, Rebekah didn't have those. You know, EPT wasn't quite made yet. They were still in the trial stage. But she's pregnant, and this is exciting until something happens. Something unexpectedly unusual happens in her uterus. Something happens. She doesn't understand. She feels something weird happening inside her belly, womb area. Something's not right. Something feels like they're doing something. So here's what ends up happening. So Isaac prayed because she was childless. The Lord heard his prayer, and his wife Rebekah conceived. But the children inside, notice plural. Okay, it's not like she knew she had twins. You know, the ultrasound didn't show that. It was really cloudy, you know, and they're trying to see what's going on. They couldn't quite see. But children, plural, inside her struggled with each other, which means one's kicking the other one in the head, so the other one retaliates with a suplex, and then an RKO is done, and the whole thing feels really weird inside the belly. Okay, the whole thing feels really, really weird. Now, I can't understand completely how she felt, because I've had gas, and I know how uncomfortable that is, and sometimes I'm like, doctor, what's wrong with me? And he's like, you just gotta go. You're fine. But when Rachel was pregnant with Ziva, Okay, here's what was weird. Ziva acted like she was an army. She acted like she was more than one child. And we kept thinking, are there twins in there? Is there like an Esau, Jacob in a female way? You know, what's going on? Because Rachel would lay in bed. I kid you not. She'd lay in bed and she goes, John, look at my belly. And the belly would go, boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop, boop. You know, and it's like she was literally doing like somersaults in there. And Rachel's like, everything felt like it just went upside down. And we're looking, everything's going bloop, bloop, bloop. And she just moving like mad. And she decides that Ziva was a puncher, not a kicker. Okay, we thought she was breech because Rachel was feeling all these things down here, like constantly hitting. And we thought she was kicking. We went to the ultrasound. Her head was down there. She's doing this. You know, she's Sugar Ray Leonard in the womb. You know, she's just going to town down there. But we kept going to the doctor. Is this normal? Bloop, bloop, all this? And they're like, well, you just have a very hyperactive child. And I was like, all right. Coin genes right there. I'm happy. Woohoo! Let's go, Ziva. And so we know that concern, that worriness, you know, especially since Rachel had miscarried before. So when we see all this going on and she's feeling all these weird pains, my thought is everything okay? Are we going to miscarry again? Is this what's going to happen? And how was Rebecca? Barren. And stuff's happening. And her concern is everything okay with this special miracle child? So what does she do? She contacts God. She starts praying to God. And so the children inside her are struggling with each other. And she's like, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord. She prays to God and is like, God, what's going on inside my belly? So God, fortunately, replies. Sometimes God waits. Sometimes answers take years to get the results of. For Rebecca here, God intervenes immediately. And he tells her, here's what's going on inside your belly. It's going to be fine. In fact, here's how I know it's going to be fine. I'll tell you the future. That's what God does. He gives her a type of prophecy. It's not a promise of what God is going to do. It's a result of what's going to take place. So keep in mind, that's what's happening here. So the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb. In other words, you have twins. Congratulations. Twice the diapers, twice the fun. Okay, that part's not there. So 2 nations are in your womb. 2 people will come from you and be separated. 1 people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. So that's what's going to happen. The older is going to serve the younger. Okay, now, this isn't, again, it's not God saying this is what's going to happen. He's not saying, I am making one serve the other. He is indicating what will take place in the future. One is going to be stronger than the other. Okay, this is what's going to happen. Their family conflict will be there. They're struggling with each other, and the older will serve the younger. And by the way, this struggle happens all throughout history. Okay, what happens is when they're born, Jacob ends up getting changed his name to Israel. He gives birth to the 12 tribes of Israel, right? The 12 sons, and then they end up giving birth to a guy that's Christ, Jesus, okay? God incarnate comes from Jacob. So there's Jesus coming from Jacob. Esau gives birth to what nation? Be a good Bible student for that one. The Edomites. Okay, Esau, he's a redhead, and so the Edom is the Hebrew word for red. So you get the Edomites, which kind of means the red ones. Isn't that fun? Okay, so of the Edomites ends up coming Herod the Great. Herod the Great's the guy that when he is king of Israel and he hears about Jesus, king of the Jews, he has every child 2 years old and younger killed because he does not want to be supplanted. And what ends up happening? Jesus wins. And the older serve the younger. Happens all throughout history that way. Okay, so it's just something interesting. This continually keeps on going. So, verse 24 through 26 are when the boys are born. So when time came to give birth, there were indeed twins in her womb. Oh, God was right. 2 nations. I love the word indeed in there. I hope your translation has that. It's like the author's surprise. Wow, God was right. Who would have thunk it? There was indeed 2 children in her womb. There were twins. The first one came out red-looking, covered with hair like a fur coat, and they named him Esau. Okay, this is great classic stuff here. Okay, he is At birth, this boy has to shave his back. Okay, that is what this one is like. Head to toe, he is just hairy, furry, everything you could think of, okay? So this is something great. He's a redhead, and he's covered with hair. So what Rebecca does is she grabs this hairy child, she names him Esau. After all we've gone through, you needed a good laugh. We find out about this boy in verse 27, that this boy, Esau, was a man's man, okay? He was tough. He liked to wrestle. He loved the outdoors. He was an expert hunter. He was an outdoorsman. He liked sports. He was everything you can imagine. Everything you can imagine a boy to be. You're never going to see Elmo the same again now. Okay, that's how he was. He give him a puck, give him a knife, he's good to go. That's Esau, okay? So that's this guy Esau. Then after Esau, his brother came out grabbing Esau's heel with his hand. Okay, so his name was Jacob. Now Jacob, on the other hand, his name means heel. Some translations will give you the word deceiver. Here's what's interesting about this. The word heel has double meaning to it. The literal meaning, grabbing the heel, which is, what is happening. Also, there's a metaphorical meaning to the word heel. That means a betrayal by a trusted friend, a trusted person doing a deception upon you. That's the metaphor of heel. So if you are being a heel, you are a trusted person who deceived someone. So Jacob was both a heel grabber, literally, and also we get this metaphoricalness of being a deceiver. And if you know your Genesis, Jacob very much was a deceiver. We'll see that unfold as time goes on. But here's what we know about Jacob. Okay, besides being a heel grabber, here's what's about Jacob. He was not an outdoorsman. He was not a rough and tough wrestling type of a guy. He was not a hunter. He liked staying at home. He liked cooking. He liked cleaning. He liked singing, okay? That's who Jacob was. He's this guy that could be home and would just sing and cook food and just tell everyone how great they are. I mean, that's Jacob, okay? So Esau, this rough tumble, go out and get me a wild boar and gut it. And then Jacob is like, I want to sit at home and knit aprons. Okay, that's the two. Can you get any more different? And here's the ironic part. The older, the rough and tumble guy is going to serve the younger. I want to knit aprons and wear a turtleneck sweater and say, hello, neighbor. That seems to be what's going on here. We get Arnold Schwarzenegger serving Mr. Rogers. That's what we got happening here. It's this weird dynamic that takes place. But maybe that makes sense. Maybe our families are all like that. Maybe the oldest child is the first child. They're the ones that when the parents are carrying them and they go to put them in the car seat, you hear clunk, on the top of the, and then the baby looks at you like, are you that much of an idiot? And starts crying because they know they're related to you. And then you're like, I'm so sorry here. And you put them in and clunk again, Maybe the oldest child is more rough and tough that way. And the younger one has to be the smarter one to outsmart and outwit the older ones in order not to get the wedgie. Okay, so maybe if you're the youngest child, you're the smart one of the family. And if you're the oldest child, you just got the bronze, not the brains. Okay, maybe not. All the oldest children are going, no, that's not true. I got the brains. I'll beat you up to show you. That's real smart. Prove my point. I'm the youngest in my family. So that's what's happening here with this Esau-Jacob dynamic. It's the best of times. They're born, and how great is that? Life is just really getting there. But, of course, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Things don't always stay up there. Things have a tendency to change. Have you noticed that in your lives? You have like a really, really good day. And everything about the day is wonderful. You're writing it down in your journal. You're documenting it on Facebook status reports. Today rocked. We did this, we did that, we went and we saw a concert. It was just a great day. And then the next day, I got a pink slip at work. Today bites. Today is horrible. And then you have a great day and then it's followed by a bad day. And then that's how life is, isn't it? If you notice that, it's a constant up and down. That's what happens here. Everything's going well. Everyone's born. Everything's going great. Isaac's 60 years old when the kids are born. Okay, so he's a pretty old dad. Right? The kids are born. He's singing to them Beatles music. They're like, who's the Beatles? And it just isn't, it's this cultural divide that's happening here. And so, but now everything starts to turn. Verse 27. When the boys grew up, Esau became an expert hunter and outdoorsman. We covered that. But Jacob was a quiet man who stayed at home. We covered that. Isaac loved Esau. Notice that. Isaac loved Esau. These parents begin to play favorites. Why did he love Esau? Because Esau had a taste for wild game, or because Isaac had a taste for wild game. He loved Esau because Esau brought home animals. And Isaac was like, yeah, meat, that's good. Let's eat. And it was all good stuff. And so like, Esau, my boy, you're going to go hunting? I'm thinking moose today. And let's go out and let's see what we can find. Let's go, boy. And then Jacob's like, hey, Daddy, you want to come over here and maybe we could like crochet? No. Go hunting. You want some moose. And they go out and they do all their Tim Allen things. And meanwhile, Jacob's at home. And that's what we find is that, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Okay, Rebekah loved Jacob. She's like, it's so nice. You're not out there being all sweaty and stinky. You're here and your hair's permed and you look nice. You help me in the kitchen. Everything's clean and you're organizing and your sock drawers are all fluffed and it's just so wonderful. So there's this... Parents are playing favorites. Now, I don't know if you have siblings and your parents ever played favorites on you. Man, that's horrible. Parents should not do that. It creates animosity amongst the kids because eventually one begins to yearn for the affection of the opposite parent that isn't loving them. And then sometimes statements might be made. Why can't you be more like your brother? Maybe Rebekah said that to Esau. Rebekah's like, everybody come, let's sit at the table. Everybody just said, no, arms off the table. No, don't put Esau, put your feet off the table. Esau, go wash your hands first. Esau, why can't you be more like your brother? Can you hear that? Besides me saying it. Maybe Isaac was that way with Jacob. Maybe he looks at his son and it's like, maybe they're playing football and Esau's catching it and they're throwing back and forth and then he throws it at Jacob. He hits Jacob in the back of the head. Jacob lays across in the mud, starts crying, runs to his mom and Isaac's like, boy, it's just pigskin. How can you be more like your brother? Like, can you hear that? I don't know if you've experienced that in your life. If you're a parent, man, don't play favorites like that. Children are unique. Sometimes even twins are drastically different. It is possible for people to be identical twins and be drastically different. It's possible, and it happens. Because God wires us with different personalities and different attitudes and desires and things, and we're just different. And the parent needs to appreciate that. Now, Rachel and I are like, we struggle with this. We're like, man, what if our little Chupacabra, what if she doesn't like movies like we do? What if our little Ziva doesn't like movies? What if she's a reader? You're like, John, you talk about reading all the time. I hate reading, okay? I really do. I do it because I'm fascinated by knowledge. And so I love learning things. I just wish they didn't come in books. That's all. I wish I could be like the Matrix. Just upload me, put a pin in my head, and download the information. That's what I wish would happen. Until then, I deal with the discipline of reading. But what if she's a reader? What if I'm like, hey, let's go see a movie? And she's like, why watch it when I can read it? So I'm like, Lord, help me to love the child as she's wired. However that is, help me. Now, she loves Dora the Explorer. She's like not even 4 months old. And when Dora the Explorer is on, she'll crane her neck, almost like the Exorcist baby, trying to see that thing. And then when Diego comes on, she cries. So far, so good. We're doing all right. But that's the concern. Parents, love your children. even if they're so drastically different than you. And you think you have nothing in common with your kids, and you swear there was a mix-up at the hospital, and that you came home with someone else's child, or that somehow something weird happened. Like, God, when you conceived, when you allowed that to happen, did you miss the womb with someone else? What happened here? Love the child. But that's not what Isaac and Rebekah did. They played favorites. So this is the beginning of a brewing of a problem. Okay, this is the beginning of a problem. So how did the problem pan out? Once, when Jacob was cooking a stew, so at some point, years later, Jacob was cooking a stew. Just think about that for a minute, okay? A guy is supposed to, it should say, if it's a normal guy in here, it would be, as Jacob came home with a deer around his shoulders, or as Jacob's out sharpening his tools. But no, where's Jacob? He has an apron on. He's sitting there in the kitchen going, I love you. And he's just sitting there just cooking up his stew. So once while Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came in from the field exhausted. You would expect a guy to be out in the field, turning the crops, getting things planted. You expect him to doing physical labor stuff. That's what Esau's doing. So he said to Jacob, let me eat some of that red stuff. So Jacob's making a red stew. It's kind of ironic, isn't it? It's a red stew, and Esau's a redhead. And I almost wonder if maybe Jacob's like, mashing the red, mashing all the red. He's turning extra hard. Like, it's my brother in here. I don't know what he's making this red lentil type of stew. He's cooking it up, and Esau's like, dude, man, I'm exhausted. I'm famished. Let me have some of that red stuff there. It's like, and I'll tell you what, if I'm making a pizza or I'm making my special spaghetti and you come and say, what's that stuff? I'm going to be like, it's food. Don't call it stuff. It's food and it's good. Okay, so he said, let me have some of that red stuff because I am exhausted. That is why he is also named Edom, which means red. Okay, he is red. He wants something that's red. Here's what's interesting. I thought Esau was an expert hunter. Where's his catch? Is this like a sign of his failure? That he couldn't do what he was even best at? That even his best wasn't good enough? So he comes home and wants to stand on the shoulders of Jacob's success of cooking a stew? Well, at least I can make something from the garden. It doesn't run from me. You think about it, stews are actually easier than meat, isn't it? Carrots, last I saw, were pretty easy to get. It's not like you have to trap it and sneak up on it or anything. You just carrot. And so this is this dynamic that's developing here. So he said, I want some of that red stuff. I'm exhausted. I'm absolutely exhausted. So then Jacob replied, okay, I'll give you some if you sell me first your birthright. There's mental illness here. Just a little bit. I mean, think about this. He's cooking food. His brother comes in and says, man, I'm hungry. Can I have a bowl? Yeah, if you give me all your inheritance. Really? In my mind, I'm like, is that really there? I'm rubbing my eyes. Is that really? Yeah, that's the first thing out of his mouth. First, sell your birthright. I want all your inheritance. Wow, that's messed up. Well, how is Esau going to reply to this? Look, said Esau. I'm like, yeah, here it comes. Challenge him. I'm about to die. Really? So what good is a birthright to me? That's Esau's reply. What good is a birthright? I'm so hungry I could die. I'm going to guess he was exaggerating. You with me on that one? He's exaggerating just a wee little bit. He didn't get anything. I'm sure he's hungry. I'm sure it hurts. But I don't think he's to the point of death. After all, he did just walk in. If it had said that he was crawling in and that he made it halfway to the doorstep, his head is over the threshold and he passes out, then maybe I would say that he was near death. But just walking in and say, hey, I want some of that stuff. Give me your birthright. Oh, dude, I'm going to die. I'm so hungry. Really? But of course, that's an Esau problem. We don't exaggerate. That's not a problem in this church. No, not at all. Here's what I've noticed. Pain and suffering are like fish. The more you tell people about them, the bigger they get. That's why, have you noticed that? Suddenly, the hours of sleep that we got are decreased. The amount of bills are increased. The stack of bills, I got a stack of bills like that. I got them like that thick. And you look at it and it's like, you got 2 envelopes here. What are you talking about? And it's like, man, I got this. My problems are this big. And then they go tell someone else, dude, my problems, I can't even reach them. And that's what I've noticed. We exaggerate all the time. It reminds me of the movie Despicable Me. You guys seen that cartoon, Despicable Me, where the little girl sees this fluffy little toy unicorn hanging from a carnival booth, and she yells, "It's so fluffy, I'm gonna die!" Really? The fluffiness of that thing is so great, it's gonna kill you? Exaggeration! Okay, that's us. We're like that. We exaggerate all the time. And then if we think that people aren't agreeing with how bad it is, we'll just add stuff from other parts of life that aren't even related just to pile it on up so everybody can say, wow, that's a big wall. That's what we do. We exaggerate the urgencies. We exaggerate the seriousnesses. We bring it all together like that. So Esau, described as one who just despised his birthright, trades it in for a single meal. Here's what happens. So he says, I'm about to die. Whatever. So what good is a birthright to me? Jacob says, swear to me first. So he swore to Jacob and sold his birthright to him. Then Jacob gave bread and lentil stew to Esau. He ate, drank, and got up. I want you to notice the Genesis chapter 1, or chapter 2 and 3 type parallels here. Or chapter 3 parallel. When Eve took the fruit and then gave and ate. What's happening here? Jacob gives and Esau takes and ate. Okay, it's the same wording that's going on. It's almost like the Moses is saying, by the way, here's this constant repetition of this sin that's happening. It's like the 3rd time or 4th time that's happened now in just the first 20-some chapters that we get this phrasing of they took and they ate. They took and they ate. And it's this bad downfall from it. And so he took and he ate, he got up and went away. So Esau despised his birthright. Now, here's the thing. I understand that he did something stupid, that he mistreated his birthright, that he undervalued it, but despised? That's a harsh word. And so if you go to Hebrews chapter 12, it gives us the rest of the story. I know, isn't that weird? You have to go to the New Testament to get more application to the idea of despising a birthright. Here's what Hebrews chapter 12 has to say. Now, Hebrews is an interesting book. It appears that it's a sermon that was preached by Paul and written down by Luke. And so we get this great letter that acts very much like a sermon. And so in Hebrews chapter 12, here's what's being written down here and being preached likely by Paul. Pursue peace with everyone and holiness, starting at verse 14. With it, no one will see the Lord. Make sure that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no root of bitterness springs up, causing trouble, and by it defiling many. And make sure that there isn't any immoral or irreverent person like Esau, who sold his birthright in exchange for one meal. For you know that later, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, because he didn't find any opportunity for repentance, though he sought it with tears. Here's what's going on. Here's how Hebrews gives us insight to this issue of despising. That ultimately, what is happening here is that Esau was about the moment. It's all he cared about was now. What he wants, when he wants, how he wants, because he wants. It's the sin of autonomy. He's a law to himself. Okay, that's what Esau was about. I'm hungry now. This inheritance is so far down the road, it doesn't benefit me now. So why should I care about that? I want what I want now. The birthright is useless because it's not now. It is a complete disregard for consequences. It is complete disregard for development, complete disregard for results, complete disregard for self-discipline, all of it. He just throws it out, and he wants what he wants now. And here's the fun part. Almost every sin is that way. Think about it. Every sin is really a timing issue. Almost always. There's a timing issue involved. It's wanting something inappropriately now rather than getting it appropriately later. That's what sins are often about. Sexual sins. How is sex supposed to take place? Within the boundaries of marriage. Right? That's how it's supposed to be. What are sexual sins? Committing sex now, not in the bonds of marriage. I want to have it with who I want, when I want, and I'm not going to wait for marriage. I'm not going to do it God's way. I want to do it my way. Sexual sins. What about stealing? There are two ways to be able to get an object, two main ways. One, you can work for it, save up and get it, or you can steal it to get it now. Right? That's what stealing is. It's wanting something now. What about murder? Let's go all the way out to the extreme. Murder itself is also about timing. It's removing a person of frustration from an equation now rather than working to solve the difficulty over a period of time. People are so mad with someone that they want to kill them to get them out of the life and removed from life rather than trying to work the relationships out. It's the easy way, most convenient way now. You know, that's what a lot of the sins are about. Outbursts of anger are trying to control things your way now rather than trying to work them out calmly and get a solution calmly over time. I don't want to try to work this out. I just want to get mad, yell and scream so everything happens my way right now rather than trying to find a solution and work the relationship out. That's what a lot of sins are about. Esau wanted to eat now. He put the desire for food to the level of idolatry and sacrificed his inheritance for it. And to what value? What was the inheritance? What was this thing that he was supposed to get? Often the inheritance, the birthright, is the majority of their parents' estate. It's often what it is. That's how the law of Moses describes it. It's a double portion of what any child would get if in the family. It's the majority of the estate. And he chose temporary relief rather than waiting till later. And here's the thing. Here's what we need to really grasp, okay? Here's how this is going to pan out. And this is going to be a little rough to hear, so enjoy. Chew on this for a while. We will reap what we sow. I know you know that, but think that through. Okay, we will reap what we sow. If you sow sin now, you will reap sin later. That's what will happen. If you just throw out seeds of bitterness, unforgiveness, rage now, you will not have self-discipline later. You will not have self-control later when you wish you had it. If you plant pumpkins in the ground and then you come back and you're mad that you don't have apple trees, you're crazy. But that's how we live our life. That's how we sow pumpkins and want apples. That's how we live. We say, you know what, I want sex my way now. And then they're mad when they can't seem to find a proper relationship. They say, I want to be able just to get what I want, and I'm so impatient. I got to have it now. I love it when kids hate school, and then they don't do the schoolwork. And it's like, they say, well, the schoolwork has no use in my life today. Well, guess what it does teach you? Self-discipline that you will need later. If nothing else, even if the knowledge is useless, the practice, the discipline of sitting down and doing something that should be done that you don't want to do, but you're going to do it anyways, that skill is invaluable. You need that if you're going to keep a job. If you're not going to be lazy, if you're going to have a marriage to survive the hell that is life at times, if you're going to survive that, you need self-discipline now. And you're not going to get it if you don't start sowing it now. You start practicing it at this moment. Because wisdom will just laugh at you later. If later you say, man, I wish I had the self-discipline. Well, You should have started before. So that means start sowing it now so you can reap it later. Well, how long is it going to take? However long it takes for trees to grow. It could take months. It could take years. The point is you have to start working at it now so you get the benefit later. It's delayed gratification over instant gratification. That's what we need to be working with. That's what Esau did not learn. And what he tried to do was he tried to fix it later, and he ends up crying. He never repents from this attitude. He never repents of this issue of wanting everything his way right now. That's what Hebrews is talking about by he never found repentance. He never turned his life around. He never tried to sow the discipline. He never tried to fix it. He never tried to change. He just kept doing the same thing over and over again. He just despised that type. He did not possess the spiritual attitude of self-control at all. He didn't have it. He didn't sow it. But here's the good news. There is still a great, wonderful fact we can reflect upon here. A wonderful thing. Hebrews 12 and Genesis 25 does not leave us in such a field of hopelessness. It doesn't leave it there. It doesn't leave us there. Hebrews 12, predominantly, if you missed it, when it was talking about Esau, it said just 2 verses prior, do not reject the grace of God. Do not reject the grace of God like what Esau did. Ultimately, an inheritance, a birthright, is about God's blessing. Is what God blessed a family with over time. That's God's blessing. That's part of His grace. It's not all of it. It's part of His grace. Do not reject that. Because God is such a great God that He will continue to bless and restore. Even when we mess things up. There is always that second and third. As long as you have breath, you have an additional chance to sow the right seeds. That's how great God is. That there's always that additional chance because of the blood of Christ that cleanses all sins through all time. Everyone, Old Testament, New Testament, today have the ability to sow new seeds. Today, you could sow new seeds in your families. As you write down, tell someone I love them when it comes to you about your parent or about children or about a sibling. Maybe your brother needs to be told that you love them, or a sister needs to be told that you're sorry that you had this animosity between each other. Whatever. You could start sowing that seed now. Well, they're going to hang up the phone on me. That just means the harvest hasn't come yet. You keep trying. You keep sowing the seed until it takes. You keep going. Start sowing that seed now. And keep working with it. And keep praying, asking God to let the harvest bloom. We can start that now. We are all crooked sticks. And God can draw a straight line with you. If you let Him. That's the good news here. That with all the junk that is going on in the lives of these people, God still became the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. How great of a guy is Jacob right now? He's kind of a jerk. And he's going to become a mighty man of God later. He's still going to wrestle with God and still have his imperfections. But he's going to become a mighty man of God. Why? He's sowing the seeds. He's not doing it perfectly, but he's doing it. What are you doing? What seeds have you been sowing? And what seeds do you need to start sowing right now? Let's have a word of prayer.